says with the draft 3 weeks from today. Shefty, the Tennessee Titans are picking number 1. What do you say?
More and more it looks like Cam Ward is going to be the pick, and the longer this goes on, the more it looks like they're more inclined to hold on to that number 1 pick rather than trade that number 1 pick. And Brian Callahan, the Titans head coach, was in Cincinnati when the Bengals drafted Joe Burrow number 1 overall. He knows how important that number 1 overall pick can be, and the Titans think it could have the same type of effect on their organization. We'll see if they decide to stick there.
It's picking at number 2. What does Shefty say?
Look, I know there's a lot of conversation about quarterback at number 2, Greeny, but it certainly feels like it is trending towards an Abdul Carter selection. Now, look, there's still 3 weeks to go before the draft in Green Bay, 3 weeks from tonight, and a lot still can change. But they spent a lot of time with Abdul Carter. Their owners even went to his private little workout at the Penn State Pro Day in State College a week ago. It just feels more and more like Abdul Carter's trending that way, which leaves us to the Giants at number 3, and a lot of people wondering whether they will go quarterback. But it just feels like there hasn't been a lot of Shedeur Sanders talk at 2 or 3 lately. And if, in fact, Cam Ward goes 1 and Abdul Carter goes 2, that would set up the real possibility that Travis Hunter could wind up going number 3 to the New York Giants. He would give them the type of star power that they lost when Saquon Barkley went to Philadelphia, would help fill a need. Yes, they'd love to draft a quarterback. But as we've talked about on this show and other shows, how high of a grade do they have on Shedeur Sanders? Where is the value that they assign to him with the 3rd overall pick? Is it worth it, or is Travis Hunter too good to pass up? And the more you hear and the longer this goes on, the more it feels like Shedeur Sanders is more unlikely to go at 2 or 3, and we then will have the biggest question on draft night. Where will Shedeur Sanders go?
Let's dive into that for a minute here with J. Mack and Harry. So, guys, we were talking about this morning, and there's an interesting way of looking at it. Because we keep asking you, our producers will ask the analysts, should the Giants draft Shedeur Sanders? And your answer, Harry, was, well, if they love him. Well, that's, with all due respect, a pretty obvious answer, right? If they love him, then of course they're going to draft him. Here's the question. What if they like him? You know, do you, it's sort of like you might date someone that you like, but do you marry them? When you draft someone at 3, you are making a commitment. Do you draft a quarterback because you, quote unquote, need a quarterback at number 3 if you merely like them but don't love them?
No, if you just like them, you can't do it. You have to take whatever defensive player is on the board at that time, whether that's Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter. And the reason why I use the word love, Greeny, is because, see, you've seen that movie Love Jones, right? That's the kind of love it has to be with Lorenz Tate and Nia Long. You have to be infatuated. You have to be mesmerized by that player. If you aren't those things, then you better take that defensive player at number 3.
For a second, I thought he was going to start singing the way he got into it and the emotion. And I agree with that. But I also think the last thing Shefty said is we're still 3 weeks away from the draft. So for the New York Giants, you still have his pro day or showcase coming up. You still have an opportunity to have private meetings with him. I still think there's time to fall in love because, Greeny, as you say that, hey, it takes a while to know whether you want to marry somebody or not. You have to go through that dating phase and have those touch points to see exactly who this person is. So for the New York Giants, yes, they've studied the film, they've watched him, they've been around him a little bit, but I think there's still time for them to fall madly in love with him and at that number 3 spot still possibly pick a guy like Shedeur Sanders.
See, there's so many factors in all this to me, Shefty, because and the pro day and all of that stuff is this week. It's tomorrow, right, in Boulder, and it's about as late of one of these as I can ever remember there being, for whatever that's worth. But there were so many factors in this because you've got the coach and you've got the general manager and you've got the owner, and we know how upset he has been with the way a lot of things have gone, Shefty. So it feels like there are a lot of things swirling around the Giants at number 3.
Well, here's what I would say. The Giants have spent a ton of time already around Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. And to me, I don't know what would come up this late in the process that they haven't already known, going to most, if not all, his games, meeting with him at the combine, spending all the time that they have with him. In my mind, and I know these things do shift, and they often do, but they have to know whether they feel a conviction on Shedeur Sanders by now. And again, what it comes down to is the draft's highest grades belong to Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter. If you speak to personnel people around the league, they are, by all accounts, the best players in this draft. And so are the Giants going to take a lesser-rated player at a more important position that they might not love as much as those other guys? And that's what we're going to be wondering about. It doesn't feel like it's moving that way, but there are still 3 weeks to go.
Really quickly, if someone said if they were going to love him, they would love him already. Is that right, or can tomorrow change all of that?
No, tomorrow could change all of that.
You could fall in love.
Oh, 100%.
How? How does that?
Because once that Jones hits you, Greeny, it's a wrap from there.
Well,
I think there's outside influences that sometimes can factor into that. There's ownership that also has a say in who they draft at number 3.
That's the piece of this that we'll get into as we continue. We're just getting rolling today. As you can see, we are jam-packed. The squad is full. Aaron Rodgers has already started throwing to DK Metcalf. So why hasn't he just signed with the Steelers? We have a Pittsburgh legend weighing in. You need to hear what he said. Plus, are the Lakers the biggest threat in the West? There is a big believer in them in our studio. And when I say big, I mean that both literally and figuratively. You'll hear why as we roll on. It's Get Up on ESPN.
We are 3 weeks away from the NFL draft. Field Yates has released his newest mock. 5 quarterbacks going in the first 2 rounds. Cam Ward at the top as expected. Then Shedeur. Sanders doesn't have to wait long for his name to be called. The Giants are snagging him according to Field at 3rd overall. And Jackson Dart getting picked in the 1st round. Field says he heads to the Steel City to Pittsburgh at 21st overall. Oh, did you make a reservation with the Love Doctor? What's your insurance? It's okay. You can pay out of pocket. NFL analyst Jason McCourty, J-Mac, joining the program because it's McCourtship season. J-Mac, fantastic to see you. Let's get right into it. Let's start with Shedeur. If the Giants draft him 3rd overall, what will the dynamic look like with him, Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston all in that quarterback room?
Well, you've seen that story before. That's the girl that feels like she has it all. She has a best friend that she's put in that friend zone, and Jameis Winston, he's good to talk to. He understands his role in the situation. And then you have Russ. That is Mr. Consistent. She knows exactly what she's going to get, and she thinks she's happy right there being with him. But then there's a new kid in school, shows up one day, and Shedeur Sanders, and he has a little bit of that flair, and she starts to look twice and double take, and next thing you know, Russ is in trouble. And I think that is the dynamic in the situation if the Giants choose to select him at that 3rd overall spot. Shedeur have an opportunity to come in and impress coaches and teammates right away. And although Russ is there and you assume he's going to be the starter, depending upon how far Shedeur can come along, he can maybe take over that spot.
Dang, Jameis Winston is the friend-zoned one. He's the one that's a good listener because you know he likes to talk. He hits the word count. All right, let's get to the McCourtship. Things are getting ugly, actually, J-Mac. In Cincinnati, Trey Hendrickson said yesterday that his communication between his camp and the Bengals have been poor over the last few months as he seeks a new deal. How would you describe the situation he's dealing with right now in Cincy?
Well, for Trey Hendrickson, he's the person in that relationship that continues to hit him with the "what's up with us? Where are we at?" conversation. Hey, we need to sit down and talk about this because things are getting serious. And the Bengals can